Hi.
Hi.
So what we're gonna start with today is kind of the foundation. In order to understand what is Judaism, we need to understand what are the main books that Judaism is kind of linked to, and observe all the Jewish laws and the way that Judaism is shaped
Right.
today. Overall, it's not a missionary religion. It's nobody go and run after people to become Jewish. It's something that is really, if someone feels that they're like a lost Israelite, or that somewhere along their heritage they were Jewish, they would be drawn to that. Usually Jewish people will ask them, why should you? It's hard. You need to serve. You need to pray more. You have to do certain rituals. You have to watch what you're eating, ask all the questions before you do something. Is it good for me? And so on and so on. But once we really want to understand what Judaism is all about, we start with the books. And the main books are called also the written Torah. And we have also the oral Torah.
Right, the Tanach and Talmud, right?
Exactly. Talmud is the oral Torah, even though it's written, it's connected to the part that is considered oral Torah. Yeah. So if we want to focus on the written Torah first, so the what we can talk about the most, as you said, was the Tanach. And the reason is because the Tanach is an acronym for 3 parts that are, when I translate it to English, it's the Hebrew Bible. Because when people think, the Torah or the Tanach is the Bible, in Israel, we call it the Bible. But here, what is called the Bible is with what is called the New Testament. And Jewish people don't recognize the New Testament as part of our religion. In fact, they're a little bit, they wonder about it, because they say, when did the Torah turn to be an Old Testament? If we're promised in the Torah that this is the eternal eternal testament, eternal bounding between Hashem, God, and the Jewish people. So they don't acknowledge a New Testament, they acknowledge that testament only. So the written Torah referred to, first of all, the 5 books that are called also Chumash, because Chumash is from the word Chamesh, 5 in Hebrew. The first 5 books are also called Chumash, or called the Torah, or the 5 books of Moses, Moshe. I like to call the names by how they're called in the Torah in Hebrew, because many of the original names in the Torah were changed, I guess, in Latin to be maybe easier to pronounce. But in Judaism, the name that a person have, or anything, a name is very powerful. The word neshama in Hebrew, which means soul, has the word Shem inside it. So the word neshama has in the middle Shem. Shem is a name. So the name that a person has is linked directly to their soul. So that's why it's very important to learn the names by their real pronunciation. So Moses is actually Moshe, Avraham is Abraham, that's close, but Yitzchak is Isaac, Yaakov is Jacob. So, by the way, there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet. So, and so on and so on. The names are very powerful. The names are like chariot for the spiritual correction and gift that these people managed to manifest in our world. Now, back to those 5 books. So as we said, the 5 books of Moshe, or the 5 books that begins the Torah, that's the books that we read from every Saturday, every Shabbat in the Jewish synagogues. Every week is linked to a specific weekly portion that we also see as not just coming to the synagogue and hearing about it, It's also whatever was happening during this week is somehow affecting our weekly life. And by going to listen on Shabbat morning to the Torah, to hear the parasha, the weekly portion, we kind of charge our souls for the week ahead. The other part of what we call the Tanach, or what I just said, like the Hebrew Bible, is the Nevi'im. So the Taf and Tanach are in Hebrew acronym of 3 letters. Taf is the Torah. That's the part of the 5 books. Nun is Nevi'im. Nevi'im are the prophets. So that includes all the books of the prophets, like Shmuel, Samuel, Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Yeshayahu, and so on and so on. And then we have the part that is called Ktuvim. Ktuvim means the writings, and that includes Psalms, it includes the Chronicles, the 5 scrolls that are also linked to different occasions in the year, like holidays, for example, the scroll of Esther, so that will be read in Purim, the scroll of Ruth will be read in Shavuot, the holiday Shavuot, and so on and so on. I want to focus with you today on the 5 books first, okay? That's what we're going to focus the most. And with that, just like, what is every book? So those 5 books have all the laws, what we call in Hebrew, halacha is the Jewish law. Halachot, Jewish laws. And all those laws are in the Torah, and they're considered the written laws, or they call them Deoraita. Deoraita is an Aramaic name for the Torah. Comes from also the word or, light. And of course, as Jews, we are obligated to keep the mitzvot. There are some mitzvot that are, the mitzvot are like the merits, the commands that we swore to serve, we swore to keep as Jewish people, to be holy. Sorry, doesn't mean that everyone is keeping everything all the time. Unfortunately, not everyone. But you know what? We all have our own path and our connection with Hashem, with God, and we have to build that path. Now, along the way, we're going to see amazing people that will be inspiration for us. And we're also going to see people that might not do what they're supposed to do. What we need to remember is that people are people,
right,
and that nobody is perfect. And our job is not to let anything move us from our way. You know, that's really, really important. So with that, I want to go to the first book. And of course, I'm going to give you the Hebrew name, but also going to tell you if you want the English name. So the first book is Bereshit. Bereshit is Genesis. Again, the meaning of the name. So Bereshit is like in the beginning. And what is interesting is that in Judaism, every time that you have something that has to do with the seed level, with leadership, it will have the word Rosh in it. Rosh is a head. So Rosh Hashanah is the Hebrew, beginning of the year, the Happy New Year. Rosh Chodesh is the head of the month, or the beginning of every month. And in Judaism, the beginning of every month, it's like the seed level for the whole month. And there's different rituals and things that we do to bless the new moon, to bless the new month. So Bereshit has the word Rosh in it. We know that now this is something that has to do with the seed level for the whole year and for our own personal lives. Now, this is the first also of the 5 books. And in Genesis, in Bereshit, we have the stories of the creation of the world, of course. We have the beginning of mankind from Adam, the first man, and Chava, Eve, Chava, his wife. all the way till Noah. And we have, of course, the story of the big flood. Then later on, the life of the three fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The born of the brothers from Yaakov, and the selling of one of them, of Joseph, as a slave. And he then become the ruler of Egypt. And it ends with the tribes of Israel going down to Egypt. Okay, that's when they found out about Yosef being there, that he's alive, and so on, and they go to Egypt. By the way, the word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim is also has a code in it for like something that is narrow. You know, like when a boat goes in the ocean and there's all of a sudden like a narrow place between, two rocks, something like that. So it's already showing with the name that this is a place that's going to be very hard for them, very narrow, that they're going to have to kind of break through. The second book, are you ready?
Ready. Sorry, I muted it so you don't hear my keys.
No problem.
Okay.
The second book is Shmot. In English, they call it the book of Exodus. But again, in Hebrew, it's called the book of names, Shemot. Now again, as I said in the beginning, the names have very powerful meaning. So the reason they gave it the name in English is as Exodus is because one of the remarkable things that are happening during this book is Exodus, like going out of Egypt. But the name Shmot means names is because this parasha starts with these are the names of the people that are going down to Egypt. And the Torah counts exactly 70 names. And the 70 are one name against a different power that is in the world. And while they were going down to Egypt, which was back then one of the most negative witchcraft, voodoo, you name it, they had it, black magic place, like the darkest from dark magic aspect place in the world, they had to come protected with 70 powers. And that's what this is starting with. That's why in Hebrew it's actually called Shmot, names, and not Exodus. So this book starts with the starting of like the enslaving of the Jewish people, the Israelites in Egypt, all the way to the beginning of Moshe, the story of Moshe, and revealing his connection to Hashem and finding out that he's a Jew, and then going to the desert, coming back, the 10 plagues, going out of Egypt, and then receiving the Torah. So you can also see in the Torah that there are different numbers that are very powerful. So we have the 10 commandments, but we also have the 10 plagues. So the 10 plagues and the 10 commandments, they are somehow connected, because in order to receive the Torah, there was a need first to break all the negativity in all the 10 spheres. Whenever there's 10, it refers to the tree of life. The tree of life is a concept of how the light of God is coming into our world. And even when in Egypt, it was needed to be 10 breaking of negativity in order for them to break free and go to receive the light, which comes after with receiving the Torah, still in the same book. Unfortunately, human nature, they did the sin of the golden calf. When you learn about it, it wasn't exactly the Israelites, it was more the Erev Rav, which was a group of very high souls, but many of them were actually the sorcerers and the witchcraft magicians of Pharaoh that came with them out, and they were kind of they saw Moshe as their high authority. They didn't connect yet to how God works in the world. And when Moshe, they thought he's late, he wasn't late, but when they thought that, they wanted to make a God for themselves. The whole thing, not going to go into it, but the sin of the golden calf was very big. Wasn't something that you expect them to do right after all these miracles. Of course, it wasn't just the Exodus itself. It was going, the spreading of the sea, the Red Sea. But nevertheless, human nature, this is how it goes. Hopefully, we'll stop with that at one point. Later on, it talks about building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the place that Hashem is saying, let them build a place and I will stay in them. So wait a minute, if there's a place, you should stay in the place. But sometimes we build a place and then it's like we build also, while making that happen, we build a space inside ourselves to receive holiness. And that's what it was all about. So tabernacle, later on, when the Israelites went back to Israel, they later on, in the time of King Shlomo, they turned into the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash. But in this time, it was a portable holy place that goes with them as they travel in the desert. It talks about the clothing of the Kohanim, the priests, and then it ends with finishing, the building of the tabernacle. Then we go to the third book, which is Vayikra. Vayikra is, and he called and he summoned, and the translation is Leviticus. And it's because this talks about the work of the korbanot, the sacrifices that they would sacrifice for different sins and that were happening, the rules of impurity, purity, different mitzvot that are making the Kohanim holy and sanctify them, and sanctifying the whole nation of Israel. It has some blessings and it has some curses of what will if. The next book is Bamidbar, and Bamidbar, it's also very interesting because the book is called the Book of Numbers in English, but the word Midbar in Hebrew is desert. And when you say Bamidbar, it means in the desert. And the desert is not just a place, it's also a code for when you're away in a place that, you're wandering a desert. It's kind of like the place that is not close to a city. And it's kind of like, you're more vulnerable to be affected by the dark side in a way. But also in order to overcome, in order to turn yourself more holy, more elevated, you have to kind of go and at least try to win over the dark side or the devil in their own field. So that's what's happening here. Bamidbar, Book of Numbers, very, very spicy book. A lot of things that were happening to them in the desert that are, you could write a whole telenovela from what was going on there. But basically, it's the wandering of the Israelites in the desert, some attacks that they had, different challenging situations that were happening along the way, a preparation to take back Israel, the land of Israel, and dividing it into tribes by the tribes of Israel. And then the last book is called Dvarim. Dvarim are like kind of like things that were said or words that were saying, like it comes from the word ledaber, to talk or to say in Hebrew. And in English, it has the name, if I'm pronouncing it right, it's Deuteronomy. It's a hard name for me. I'm Israeli. But in Hebrew, again, why is it called like these are the words? Because these are the words that Moshe, that's the speech that Moshe gave. But the words, these are the words, like Ele Hadvarim, it gives the numerical number of 36. And the code, the Torah, you cannot just read the stories and assume that now you know everything. The Torah has so many codes hidden in it that it's mind-blowing. And every time you think you learned another layer, you find out there's more and more and more. That's why, to convert, it's one thing. You can learn, and at one point you'll get to the final, level in order to convert. But Judaism is something that is life, learning experience. You learn all your life, and every time you find more and more new things. You find all of a sudden things that clicks to you that didn't click a year before of the same material even, and so on and so on. So just a little bit about here, El Advarim, the numerical number gives 36 because this book starts, the speech that Moshe starts to give is exactly 36 days before he passes away. That's why it's important that it's called Dvarim in Hebrew. And this book is kind of a repetition of the other books. It's kind of Moshe's will, all his speeches in front of the nation before entering the land of Israel, right before he passed away. So he gives an historical, review of what was happening. He repeats the mitzvot of the Torah, the commands that Jewish people have to do. He kind of warns them to stay loyal to Hashem. And of course, he knows their human nature. But this is kind of like a father before he says goodbye, want to make sure that his children are going to do their best to stay good and holy and go on the right path. And it ends with the death of passing away of Moshe in the end of the book. Of course, to each book you have midrashim. Midrashim are a part of the oral Torah that kind of complements the written Torah. But this is the written Torah. Any questions about that?
So you said the last book, it's Moshe is Moses.
No, Moshe.
Moshe. But in English, what is that?
Moses.
Moses, right? Okay, Moshe.
Yeah.
Okay, Moshe.
Okay, so the last book is all his repetition of what happened, the history of what happened to them, and the different mitzvot, the rules that they have to keep. And he kind of knows that once he passes away, there'll be some things that, they're gonna go back and forth. Of course, this book also, I forgot to mention, also talks about him passing the leadership to Joshua.
Okay.
He really gives, because he's also teacher, not just passing it to him randomly. He kind of chose him with a divine knowledge. So he gives a part of his soul before he passes away in a way to Joshua.
Okay. Is this where he also warns of fake messiahs and everything?
Is he what?
Where he warns against a messiah?
What do you mean?
Like Jesus?
Jesus, unfortunately or not, is not even mentioned in the Torah.
Okay.
He was born in the 1st century. This is centuries before BC.
Yeah.
So, Jewish people don't believe. I mean, Jesus was born as a Jew and he died as a Jew, and he lived in Jerusalem, but he was not he was not considered a Messiah, because there are
Right.
specific rules in the Torah and in the Nevi'im and in the Ketuvim of exactly what will be when the Messiah will come, the Mashiach will come. And in fact, in every generation, the soul of the Mashiach is reincarnated, but if it's not the right time, it would not reveal. But you know, in Judaism, you keep kosher, you keep Shabbat, you know, you keep so many rules that, and also nobody can die for someone else's sin. God doesn't work that way.
Right.
And also in Judaism, we believe that we're all sons and daughters of God. And there's not one person that is higher than someone else. Also, the Mashiach himself will be a human being, maybe with special insight, very holy, you know, but still, it's not a God. We don't, there's only, in Judaism, there's only one God.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and there's a lot of places in the Torah that not a lot, but it's not in the Torah, but there's some books of the prophets that people try to find, you know, different links, but it's not there. Many of the places they say, oh, the word is this, it's not translated the right way. When you learn Hebrew, you see that the words are not the right words. You know, there's a, for example, a place in Isaiah 53 that they say when someone not Jewish saying, oh, it says the virgin. It's not the virgin, it's a young lady. And, you know, giving birth to a son, and his name is going to be Emmanuel. But Emmanuel is not the name of, you know, JC. His name was Yeshua. And even if you try to say that, what happened in, you know, when you look at the Torah, you don't look at one sentence. You look at the whole concept. So what's happening in Isaiah 52? What's happening in Isaiah 54? And what's happening is that the Isaiah, Yeshayahu, is talking about his own wife that is going to give birth, you know, to a son that will be Emmanuel. And he's using this as a promise to the king that he's talking to at that moment, that he will win the war. And as a promise, as a sign, his wife will give birth, and the name will be Emmanuel. And then in 54, you see the wife of Isaiah gave birth, and it's Emmanuel. So it has nothing to do. You know. Now, being said all that, of course, I respect everyone's belief, but it's just not fair to people that you use the Torah, which belongs to Jewish people, and you try to say that it shows there's something when it's not there. You know, you have other books and say, okay, in the book of this, in the book of that, that's where it talks to, and I'll say, okay, I respect that. But I don't like, you know, people should give the true knowledge. You know, so for example, the example I gave, it doesn't say that. It says ha'alma, and that's a young lady, a young woman, and the word for virgin is betula. It has not even close to, you know. So along the way, people can translate, and, you know, if they write whatever they want, they'll write whatever they want, but it doesn't mean that you are not responsible enough, you know, to go and dig and find the truth. But it doesn't say that. And the Torah is very clear. When it talks about God, when it talks about the leaders, why doesn't it say in the 10 Commandments, I am your God and my son, Jesus? No. In the Torah, it says, I'm your God, your only God, right? I'm your God that took you out of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. What does it mean? You need to be free. You need to remember what it means to be a free man. Means that you have responsibility of how you behave in my world. Then it goes to, you shall not have other gods. So you can't have other gods in Judaism. You cannot bow to a statue. You cannot bow to an omen. You cannot bow to another person in Judaism. You can bow only to Hashem, which is one of, you know, the ways that we call as respect to God, and only to him. And you can connect to him directly. You know, that's another concept in Judaism. You don't need to, of course, you want to have guidance from a rabbi or a rabbanit, but you don't need someone else to connect to you, to Hashem, to God. When you are praying, you can pray with people, and you can pray by yourself, and you can talk to God directly.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is higher than you. Yes, there are many righteous, no, I don't know if many, I hope so, but there are many righteous people. And but they achieved it from very hard work on their own morals, on their own character, on their own, polishing their prayers, their will, their actions. But it doesn't mean that they can say, oh, I'm better than everyone else. Usually they will be more humble, actually, and not, So in Judaism, we do believe that the Mashiach is coming. And the way to bring him is by, increasing more good deeds and more mitzvot. And there are signs, like it says it in the Torah, that in the time of Mashiach, the wolf and the lamb would live together. And, what does it mean? That the wolf would be vegetarian again, because in the times of Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, we were all vegetarians. And there were no predators, They all ate grass. There was no need for the lamb to be eaten by a wolf or a tiger. Right. So we'll start seeing weird things happening in the world when the Mashiach is coming closer to revealing.
Yeah. And a question, I guess, regarding that. So, what does the Jewish religion believe if you're not Jewish? Will the Mashiach, come and save your soul as well? Or, what if they're a good person? They just didn't know Judaism, or even a Muslim, maybe they were born into some Arab country. They don't know any better, but they're good people and they do good things.
First of all, good people can be in any religion.
Right.
Just like, unfortunately, bad people. And Jewish people don't go and judge. We're not gods. Our job is not to judge. Our job, again, is to increase good deeds in the world and to serve Hashem. Serving Hashem, when we don't do our job, the whole world is suffering. Now, there are lost tribes of Israel all over the world. For example, in India, it's against the law to convert. I have people from India calling me how to convert. They have to go out of India to do it. Wow. There's many, the war right now is not just in the physical level. It's a war over our thoughts, over our consciousness. We can see it even in the social media and so on and so on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So the prevention is not just in physical level. There's many, kind of blockages on different people, but nevertheless, they're coming. Now, once Mashiach is coming and is there, and there's a revelation, that's it, everything is out, there'll be no more conversion. So whoever is coming, they're coming now. And you know what? You see people, I have messages from people from Iraq, from Iran, from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Australia, from England, from all over the world, from India, from Trinidad. They're all feeling a calling. They cannot even explain, but they feel that it's just not their soul. They're used to something, and they feel there's a calling. There's something else that their soul is craving, and they don't always know what it means, but they just feel it. Because if you look at the world, it's much more appealing now to maybe be in another religion. So why Judaism, right? Judaism doesn't run after you. Every other place they'll come and say, yeah, just come, we'll turn you into. In Judaism, you have to work hard. You have to learn. Then you have to learn how to observe the Sabbath, the Shabbat, how to keep kosher, means not everything is good for you to eat, how to be dressed, how to behave in a more humble way, what it means to be holy. It doesn't mean that you have to show off and, oh, I'm so better than everyone else. No, it's a hard job and you need to serve. Now, there's also something called the Noachide, that it's people that are not necessarily Jewish, and they still keep the 7 basic mitzvot of Bnei Noach, which one of them is not to steal, and another thing is not to eat a live, an organ from a live animal. It's about cruelty and so on, not to worship other gods. And they can be in different religions and still, think about that. You touched Islam, for example. So the Muslims, they don't have any statues in their mosque. And the way that they pray to God in some ways is very, very similar to how Jewish people do it. It's not the same prayers, but the acknowledgement of one God, and so on and so on. So there's good people everywhere, and everyone has their own job in the world. And but I can tell you that the souls coming back, which we do see now, it triggers the apocalypse.
Right. And how come? So I was reading, and like a lot of, and you, I think, even had said like rabbis discourage conversion. But to me, it seems, the more light and the more souls we can get, we can bring up the world together, and do more mitzvot for the Mashiach to come. But it's like, why then are Orthodox or some people still against conversion, right? Or don't believe it's true, even.
So I don't think that they don't believe it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that they're against it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a unique, it's a unique concept in Judaism, that Judaism is not missionary. And they're always, when you convert, they always look up to you, but they always look at you. What does it mean? They look up to you because you are someone that could eat whatever she wants, could do whatever she wants, could listen to whatever she wants, could go to, you got the point.
Yeah.
And you choose yet to really study about it and serve Hashem. You choose it. You're not born to it.
Right.
So this is remarkable. And they say that the souls that convert people receive are the highest of the highest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, when they receive...
and I'll tell you more than that. Wait.
Okay.
That's really important. In Judaism, you learn that the soul, what we call soul, has 5 parts. And when we talk about the part of the soul, neshama, this is the 3rd part. Before that, you have 2 levels. You have the nefesh, which is like the being, the human being, that's more connected to our physical desires. Then we have the spirit, ruach, and then the neshama. And the 2 other very, very high, chaya yechida. So when you convert, you get the part of the neshama. So wait a minute, where is your being? Where is your nefesh? Where is your ruach? So some explain it as what it really happened is that this person already had those parts from past life or somewhere along his bloodline, like in his heritage. There were people that were Jewish there, and it kind of pushed that soul to make that difference, to make that change. And when they get the Jewish soul, which is a very high soul that comes once they finish the process of converting. But again, does it mean that other people in the world, Jewish or not Jewish, are not elevated and amazing? No. The people that not I'll say people because it's not necessarily rabbis. The people that are more suspicious about it, they want to see that people are sincere, that when they do it, they really are going to commit. And there was a story that in England, the real story, that someone went to Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, which was one of the head rabbis in England till recently. He passed away. And they asked him, there are Jewish people, fortunately, they're not keeping Shabbat. So why a convert, when they convert, they should, promise and they should do their best always to keep Shabbat. So he said, when you apply to come to become a citizen, let's say, of England, and you have the papers to fill, when they ask you what's your occupation and you're going to write a thief, would they want you? Would they want you to come and become a citizen? Not really. Why? Because they're gonna, don't they have, thieves in England or wherever? Yes, but they have enough already. They don't need someone new that come to go and, be like, a criminal or do something that is against what their country needs. So the same here. When someone chooses to serve, they're being expected, to do it from the right reasons and also to really keep it in the higher level. I think it's not, oh yeah, it's a burden, I have to keep it. I'm proud of keeping it. I'm proud to serve Hashem. I'm proud to go with my soul and do what I came to do in the world. And Judaism, that's the thing about it. It's to take care of all the world, all people, all animals. It has rules in Judaism about not to be cruel to animals. There's so many laws about how you behave that we're talking not about now. We're talking about, more than 4,000 years ago. And there were already, there's a holiday Tu B'Shvat that is about planting trees and connecting to the tree of life and caring about the fruits and the vegetables and the trees and the plants and so on. This is not new age in Judaism. This is always a part of it. So people are not against conversion. They just feel that it's very holy to be someone who chooses to serve, but they want to make sure that you're doing it from a sincere place.
Right. So what happens to my old soul? Like before I get my Jewish soul, does it leave my body? Because I like my soul.
Okay, so that's a nice question. And you don't lose who you are. You never lose who you are. Whoever you are goes with you to everywhere. Even as a Jewish person, you elevate yourself. It doesn't mean that you disappear. It means that you're always going to be who you are with, a higher level. It's just like asking if I go from elementary school to middle school, I forget all that I learned or been in elementary school. No, you're using all of who you are to become, a push to go now to a higher level. And now let's see how you act it out, how you manifest it.
Right.
Yeah. It's never against who you are. It's kind of connecting you to the true you.
Right.
I'll tell you another thing. Sometimes we think that this is who we are, and it's not really who we are.
Right.
We are social creatures. And a lot of the times, just like we touched before, what we are affected by kind of makes us think that this is who we are. But sometimes along the way, we gather a lot of trauma, a lot of, experiences that were kind of planted into us one way or another by other people and other people's beliefs and other people's thoughts and other people anger and so on and so on. And when you're elevating yourself, you'll start seeing that a lot of those, what we call shells that are blocking the light, starting to crack and to fall. It might feel scary even because you got used to it, that you think this is who you are. And all of a sudden, what is it? If I'm not going to have my fears, my anxiety, my anger, my this, my that, who am I? I have an identity crisis. But if you try to kind of get up and see yourself from the side a little bit, you'll see that this process is essential for your growth and for you revealing and loving and let your soul shine from you. Yeah. Any questions?
Not that I can think of right now. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so in the next class, what we're going to focus is more on the oral Torah.
Okay.
It's called in Hebrew Torah shebe'al peh. Peh is the mouth, so it's literally oral Torah.
Yeah.
And you cannot disconnect the oral Torah from the written Torah, because the way that it was delivered was that Moses, went up to Mount Sinai to receive the written Torah with the oral Torah, which is the written Torah's mitzvot and stuff, explanations. So when he came down, because there were a lot of those explanations were very, very holy and elevated, not everyone could really fully not only understand it, but also when you learn the explanation of, let's say, a law, and now people come to you and they say, we have, we have a dispute. We don't know what to do. How are you going to judge? How are you going to rule who is right, who is wrong, or just to help people? So for that, Moshe was the first one to know everything. And his father-in-law, Jethro, came and told him, listen, you cannot, judge everyone all the time. He had 6 million people at the time. So you can't. So he told him, you have to assign 70 elders from like the elevated people from each tribe, and they will learn the oral Torah and the explanations and the laws, and they will judge. You're going to be the highest authority, of course, and things that they cannot solve, they'll bring to you. But the rest, they're going to solve and judge and be like the judges and leaders in their own tribes and in their area of the nation of Israel. And until the 1st and 2nd century, it was only oral. And the way that they would pass it was literally orally, from a rabbi to his student, from a father to his son, and it was not written. Because in the time of the 1st and 2nd and 3rd century, they had a lot of challenges in the land of Israel. The main one was the Romans. So at one point, and before there was the Babylonians and I'm not going to go into all the Jewish history in the land of Israel, but it was always a land that everyone wanted to take a piece. And if you're touching, for example, the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims, it says there that the Holy Land belongs to Isaac, to Yitzchak, that Abraham promised the land of Israel to Yitzchak and his descendants, and they're not allowed to take the land of Israel. Right. In their religion, they're allowed to take everything else, but not Israel. And nevertheless, you see Muslims that are very good friends with Israel and respect, Jewish people. Also, you see others. So you say, but this is the same book. This is the Quran. The Quran itself, this is your holy book. It says you're not supposed to. So what's going on? So you can see that there are things that are not always logical with Israel, because it's a very holy place. And everyone has been drawn to their one way or another. But at one point, they decided that they're going to start writing the oral Torah, because the fear of it's being lost, or, if God forbid, they're going to be exiled, and then one part of the nation will go this way and the other one that way, which actually happened in 2 big exiles. One was by the Babylonians. There was also some with the Assyrians, and later on with the Romans. So they decided they're going to write the oral Torah. And what is so beautiful is that the first book that was written and edited is the Mishnah. And the Mishnah, when you look at the language and how it's written like poetry. Can you guess why? Because they had to memorize it. So they memorized it, the rules and everything like poetry, like songs. So it would be easier for them to remember. In the next class, we're going to learn more about the books that are a part of the oral Torah. Again, they're all linked directly to the written Torah. So if there's a rule in the Mishnah, let's say about keeping Shabbat, so it's linked directly to the Torah, to where it says there not to light fire. But when you look later on, even in our own modern world, what does it mean not to light fire on Shabbat? Or what does it mean to keep Shabbat? So there are specific rules that you have to keep on Shabbat. But someone can say, okay, I'm not lighting fire, but can I turn on and off my switch in my living room? So then the rabbis, throughout centuries, they went and checked. So what's going on when you light the switch of your light bulb? Inside, even though you don't see it, and it's not like you have to make fire or light it with a match, inside, what it caused is a spark. Once you create the spark, again, they go and check all the way to the Torah. What is the part that you're not allowed to do? And you're not allowed to make even the spark because you are creating fire. So once they check that, they can tell you now for our days, still, you're not allowed to turn on or off the switch in your living room, in your car, wherever it is, because it is considered making a spark, and it doesn't matter if it's a small fire or a big fire, you're still lighting fire. So even the rules that were written like later on, they're all linked to the same basic law that is inside the Torah. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. And I wish you Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Shabbat Shalom.
All the best. And
You
hopefully I'll text you about
Okay.
the next time for our meeting. Okay?
Okay, and if you have any book recommendations or YouTube
will.
or anything, just
I
text
will.
me.
Yeah, one of the most important books is the Book of Our Heritage
Okay.
by Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov.
Okay.
You will need also a Siddur. I will
Okay.
recommend you, of course, a kosher Siddur
Right.
soon. You will need a few books about Shabbat as we go, and
Okay.
we'll get to the classes about Shabbat. And keeping of the 39 jobs that are not allowed on Shabbat and how they are, coming into action in our regular modern lives.
Yeah.
And there'll be others, but that's the main one. If you want to go ahead and start looking for the Book of Our Heritage of Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov, that would be good. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
My
You
pleasure.
too.
Bye.
Bye.